should be educated. No, it's the minimum education a child is required to have. So in 1944, the UK made a national, so to speak, a movement that every child was going to assess the same way and will face the same examination and assessments, face the same sort of growth in their educational needs. And so in 1988, we saw a reformation of that. Of course, there's a lot of changes in education. In 1988 till now, we have the same national curriculum sort of milestones. It does change within subjects, within key subjects, but as a whole, the National Curriculum Reform Act 1988 is what we abide to in the UK. Okay, so we'll move on to some of the structures of the educational system in the UK. The main structures in the educational system in the UK is early years, education, primary, secondary, and then we have our tertiary, which is the higher education. The types of schools in the UK, and this is important because different institutions approach education slightly different. Of course, again, I just mentioned the minimum of the national curriculum, but as we know, our independent schools and private schools will always go above and beyond the national curriculum. But embedded in the education given will be the obviously national curriculum, so that students can actually access or be assessed and access the assessment that they will be measured against nationally. State schools are schools maintained schools by the government, so largely our funding is from the government. Then we have academies, which are slightly exempted from the national curriculum. So again, embedded within is the minimum, because students will be unable to access the assessment if schools do not provide the minimum of national curriculum. But you'd find that academies will explore different ways in introducing students to different subjects and a wide variety of subjects, just as private school does. And one that is close to my heart is the special educational needs provision that the UK provides. Because education is so important to every child in the UK, and is mandated that every child in the UK engages and is given knowledge in that way, there is provision for students or children that might find it challenging to be in the mainstream. And so there is a special education needs provision within the UK's educational system. All right. We'll go to the key stages and curriculum. So what does the national curriculum cover? The national curriculum covers like key competencies, so key milestones that every student, every child should accomplish. It will cover subject areas for each key stage. That's including the core subjects. So our core subjects, our important subjects in the UK would be the English, maths, and the sciences, and also some of your humanities. So the well-beings, your social studies, are core subjects, because it develops a child, again, in understanding their value and what they contribute to the society, and enable them to contribute to the society. So we have those core subjects. And some people are usually surprised to see that our social studies and our humanities or well-being courses are core subjects, but they have to be, because in the UK, we have a diverse community in the UK. And so when we talk about our social studies, our societal studies, so humanities, for example, maybe religious education, which I love teaching at the moment, is important because it enables a child to discover different cultures. Yes, through the lens or eyes of religious education, of religion, but it's still different cultures. And so being, they can then be able to relate to other cultures or other people from different walks of life. We have our non-core subjects, which are which I have a degree in, are arts and crafts and all of that. But it's not to say that it's substandard or they're not important. They're just the non-core subjects, because a student or child can decide to do that at a key stage. They can decide to choose if they want to go down the arts and crafts routes. And then importantly, we embedded within the educational system is definitely extracurricular activities. It's important to know the educational system in the UK really is impressing us to build the whole being, So not just make them book smart, but make them whole human beings. So extracurricular activities are important and embedded within the UK system. Let's brush past the couple of slides. So what is early years foundation stages, so EYFS? The EYFS is the stage in which a child learns from the age of 0 to 5. It's the early years foundation stage, and it's play-based learning and development areas for children aged 0 to 5. Okay, I'll just repeat that: play-based learning, meaning that a child is allowed to explore and charter their own course within the environments of play. And as adults, we study that child and see what their interest is, and hopefully are able to guide them through those early years and through to the key stage 1 development. So the child is assessed through the early years foundation stage profile. Again, just alluding to the national curriculum, there is a profile of what different milestones a child should have met within the age 0 to 5. And so in the early years foundation stage institutions, a teacher or a practitioner will be ticking that off and saying that your child has met this and that and this. Okay, then we move on to the primary education. What are the key stages in the primary education? Within your primary education, should I pause? It seems we're having problems with the slides.
You can carry on.
Thank you.
Please go on, ma'am. Please go on.
Thank you. So the primary key stages, the primary schools, are key stage 1. Key stage 1 is from the age of 5 to 7. From the age of 5 to 7. So a child will engage in key stage 1 from the age of 5 to 7, and then will develop and be assessed again using the style of the early years foundation stage, and then be and progress to key stage 2 from the age of 7 to 11. Now, at the age of 10 to 11 is where a student will be introduced to the standard assessment tests. Again, exploring the nationality of the curriculum. So nationally, every child will have an exam at the end of key stage 2, and it will be a standard assessment test, so that when they move on to secondary education, there is a baseline of their abilities. Within the primary education, they'll be introduced to literacy, numeracy, science, history, the humanities subjects, your geography, your arts, definitely arts, and physical education. Okay, so when they have completed the SAT, the standard assessment test, they move on to secondary education. Again, the standard assessment test is just information for the secondary school of their abilities. It doesn't stop a child from moving forward. We do move them forward, but they're aware of the abilities in secondary school. The stages within secondary education are key stages 3 and 4. Key stages 3 would see a child go through it from the age of 11 to 14, and key stage 4 is from ages to 14 to 16. And again, an introduction into GCSEs, which is a General Certificate of Secondary Education. Your child would be introduced to that at 14. As a secondary school teacher, we introduced from key stage 3, but they actively are involved in GCSEs from key stage 14. Key stage 4, sorry, from the age 14 at least. And so the main qualification in secondary school is the General Certificate of Secondary Education, which is usually taken at the end of key stage 4 or within key stage 4. So you'd have some students have them do their exams in year 10, some of the exams in year 10, and then complete in year 11. Tertiary education, you would see the post-16 education, where options are available and in completing GCSEs, just in case you had not completed your GCSE in key stage 4. So it's where the UK system becomes a bit what's the word? A bit not tricky, but a child is not unable to move on without certain qualifications. So you have to have at least a level 2 qualification from secondary school to move on to a level 3 qualifications for A levels or vocational courses. And so in college, a child would be able to retake their GCSEs. And also apprenticeships are introduced in Key Stage 4 through to Key Stage 5. And apprenticeships are structured programs combining work and study available in various industries. Have I run out of time? Yes. But we'll just skip through this quickly. So our main higher educational institutions in the UK are universities and colleges offer also foundational degrees for those students who are finding it difficult to maybe move on to our degree courses, our bachelor courses or masters or PhDs, to remain in college and get those qualifications that can move them forward. I'm just going to just look through the other slides. Is there anything that's important? Assessment of qualifications. So students are practically assessed in the same way. So examination, coursework, or practicals. So where they would do it just before the examinations or within the coursework, within the course when they do the courseworks. Let's see the next slide. Let's see what we can cover. Please, I would like questions given, so to draw out more information from me in case I've just missed out on certain parts of the educational system, UK's educational system. So funding and administration, I've alluded to the fact that local authorities and Department for Education and government fundings are given to schools, different sorts of schools. We find that the Ofsted are the overseers of the school standards, ensuring that every school in the UK is of standard to provide education to students. And let's move on to some of the current issues and challenges that we're facing. So we have funding cuts. The government is not giving as much funds to institutions to explore as they would love to. A big one that I can see at the grassroots is teacher shortages. We don't have enough teachers at the moment. And so a lot of institutions are struggling to provide the utmost best education. And one that is close to my heart, education inequality. We can't shy away from the fact that the more exposed and knowledgeable and rich you are, the better your education is in the UK. And we have mental health challenges, and the big hoo-ha since 2020 that we've faced is the impact of COVID-19. Okay. And so we just conclude there. And if you have any questions for me, please, I have brushed past that quickly. If you have any questions, or if there's something that I mentioned and I haven't dived into, please ask your questions. Thank you very, very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bernadette. I feel interested in giving you an applause. So thank you very much for that very, very detailed walkthrough of the UK educational system. We're definitely going to come back to you with questions, because off the top of my head, I have questions as to what the transition would look like. You mentioned that one of the high points for you, one of the highlights for you, is differently abled children and children that learn differently. For children like that. So let's quickly touch that before we transition into Mr. Amos's session, because that's a question that we get asked quite often. And I know that in your time here at Brains and Butter, that's a question that you've definitely, interfaced quite a couple of times. What does that look like in terms of transition for the UK to the US, for children that learn differently, children that are differently abled? Are there particular things that they need to look out for? Are there particular requirements that parents of such children need to keep in mind? Can you just quickly speak to, in 1 minute, what that would look like essentially for a differently abled child, a different learner of a child that's essentially been raised in the UK, learns in the UK? You've mentioned and you've explained that there are resources and there are different opportunities available for such children, because the UK takes particular interest in their learning and their development. In situations where they now have to transition to the US, which Mr. Amos will also speak about, are there particular things that you think that parents or families of such children need to keep right at the top of their minds in considering that transition?
Okay, so if a different ability child or a special educational needs child has been in the UK and has been learning in the UK, very good question, actually. Has been learning in the UK, they would have a great profile and have a lot of details on their child's condition and how they learn. If they have been through certain key stages, a parent will be aware of what their child's ability is, how they learn, and what they should be learning. Okay, so you would even know their interests. I would suggest, as a parent who wants to transition their child from the UK to the US, is focus on those needs, on the information that you already have, and then possibly transition to the US to an institution that can provide that for your child, because you will have a profile and a lot of information about your child and their ability to learn and how they learn and what they are learning, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. Thank you very much, Ms. Bernadette, and thank you very much for that session. For those that have just joined us, thank you very much for your time. We're having a very interesting conversation today called Charting the Course, Navigating Admissions into the US from the UK. We would like to implore you to please leave your questions. We have just had a presentation from Mrs. Bernadette Makinde, who is an associate consultant here at Brains and Butter, and she's giving us a very detailed, even with historical backgrounds, overview of the UK educational system, and has highlighted some of the very important milestones and key stages. Please leave your questions in the Q&A section, and we will get to them as soon as possible. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Makinde. Mr. Amos is our next speaker for today.
Sorry, Ms. Mark.
Yes, ma'am.
Interrupt you. So we've got a question we've got 3 questions in the Q&A bit. So I'm thinking I can take the first, perhaps the first 2 questions, since that's related to the UK educational system. Okay. And then we can take the third question. So would you be kind enough to read the first question, and then I'll take that question? Absolutely. I would be happy to. And thank you very much for your questions. All right. I have a question here from, I believe, Miss Bukola Fakiesi. And her question is, what class in the secondary school is advisable to transition to the UK from Nigeria? Okay. So I'm going to give you 2 answers. I'll give you a subjective response, and I'll give you an objective response as much as possible. Now, the subjective response is that it is down to your family. It is when you are ready for your child to come here to the UK to study. It's also the fact that you're considering boarding, or would you be relocating with your child? If you're considering boarding, you need to be ready. You need to also get your child ready to board here in the UK. So really, it is down to the family. And in fact, that is the overriding response I would really give on that question. Now, here's the textbook answer. A really good year of entry for a child to start in the United Kingdom is year 9. Year 9 is a fantastic year. In fact, many schools, we have schools that are 13 to 18 schools. So what that means that those schools start from year 9. They start from year 9. That's actually like the traditional sort of old route within the independent sector, but also not excluding the state sector. So year 9 is a fantastic year of transition. It gives the child time to, manage that transition from the first 2 years of, should I say, junior secondary school, as you know it in Nigeria. So year 9 will be your JSS 3 in your Nigerian curriculum. So the child has had the first 2 years managing, the transition, leaving primary school, starting out in secondary school, sort of having a feel for the subject options that they like. So by year 9, they come to the UK. First of all, they need to acclimatize with the curriculum, with the people, with the culture, get settled into that system, get settled into the way assessments are done, get into the way learning is done, research and all of that. So there's a lot of familiarization that happens within year 9, but there's also the fine-tuning of subject options and areas of interest ahead of when they select their GCSE subject options and begin to prepare for revisions. So year 9 is that sweet year of entry. However, if you can bring your child earlier in year 7, which many families have done, it's a case of the earlier, the better. So that would be the response to that first question. Mrs. Fakiesi, I hope that has helped. And if you have any further questions on that, I'll be happy to take that. Okay, so over to the next question from our anonymous attendee.
Thank you very much, Dr. A. And thank you, Mrs. Pakiesi. If you would be interested, a member of our team will drop a link in the chat room. And so you can go ahead to ask us further questions. Our team is happy to answer those questions. Thank you. All right, next question, Dr. A. What are the key differences between A-levels and vocational qualifications like BTECs in higher school?
Another amazing question, and we're going to go deeper into that after Mr. Amos speaks. But for the purposes of your understanding as we go along, like Mrs. Oluwayomi Okunsoya said, Bernadette was saying, when you get to the tertiary education stage in the UK, there are different pathways. So right up to GCSEs, everything's running nice and smoothly. Everyone is on a similar route, though with different curriculums within the independent sector and the state sector. But the qualification of the GCSE qualification is, for all intents and purposes, the same. Now, post GCSE, there are several pathways that the child can go through. A-levels being one pathway, BTECs being another pathway for that child who is not necessarily the most sort of academic child, but not any less brilliant, just differently inclined in terms of, should I say vocational skills, hand skills, a creative child who wants to express their creativity and who wants to sort of engage in hands-on activities and learning. A BTEC route is a pathway. The sort of universities a child will go to with a BTEC qualification will differ, to be honest. However, the fact that the child is even doing a BTEC in the first place already gives you an inclination as to that child's career pathway. And one of the things Mr. Taffa is going to really talk to us about is beginning with the end in mind for your child. It is, honestly, if you can have that in your mind, it would be a game changer as your child gets older. And then once you have that end in mind, you sort of work your way backwards and then you chart the course from there. So I wouldn't dive into that right now, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that there are different pathways post GCSEs, A-levels being one of them, BTECs being one of them, the IB program being one of them. Over to you, Ms. Mark.
Brilliant answer, Dr. A. You always hit it right on the head. Thank you. And I love what you said about starting with the end in mind. That's something that we like to emphasize to our parents and our families here at Brains and Butter, to always start with the end in mind, because it definitely helps you take better informed steps and better informed decisions. Thank you very much for your answer. And thank you very much for your questions. Please keep the questions coming. And you can see we have the answers ready. Our team is ready. Our lead consultant is ready. And we definitely look forward to more of your questions. The question that came in on the USA, we will take that after Mr. Amos is done speaking so that he can shed a lot of light on that. Mr. Amos, can I please request that you turn on your camera as I read your bio and we get into your session? Good morning, sir. So good to see you. Thank you very much for your time. All right. I'm going to be going right ahead into it to read Mr. Amos's bio ahead of his presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Amos Taffa, a distinguished academic and educator with a diverse background in both science and philosophy. Born in Nigeria, Amos earned his bachelor's degree in chemistry pre-med with a minor in philosophy in 2007 from the United States. Amos's passion for biochemistry led him to explore topics such as the blood clotting cascade and cell and molecular biology. His research experience includes collaboration with a microbial geneticist on bacterial studies. In philosophy, he concentrated on the philosophy of science, studying topics like scientific theory and evolution, which influenced his further research and writing. He initially planned to pursue a PhD in either philosophy of science or biochemistry, but instead, he taught high school subjects, including biology, mathematics, and history. He later founded the Learning Institute for Excellence, focusing on math and science tutoring. Amos holds master's degrees in medical physics and medical health physics, and he specializes in diagnostic medical physics and nuclear medicine physics. Wow. He is currently pursuing a PhD in chemistry at the North Dakota State University. Mr. Amos is also a published author with works including Achieving Excellence as a Young Person and Tools for Mastering Mathematics. He also hosts the Living Sensibly podcast, which is available on major platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my true delight to welcome with us today Mr. Amos Taffa. Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for your generous introduction.
Such an absolute delight to have you with us. Our audience is so getting ready to hear you speak. I'm sure you have your presentation ready. If you would just go ahead and share your screen, I will shut down my camera so that you can have your time, and then we get right into it. Really quickly, what should we look forward to in your presentation this morning?
Well, I will say look forward to, they call it drinking from a fire hose. So you have to stay tuned because it's there's a lot of things, but they're all connected. And it really comes down to how can we help every child flourish? That's
Awesome.
really what it comes down to. How can we help every child flourish? And so I believe that America has resources. And I'm really excited about the connection to the UK, our collaboration with Brains and Butter. So yeah, come ready to learn how you can help your child flourish with opportunities here.
Amazing. Let's jump right into it. Would you please share your screen or share your slides with us?
Yes. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, sir. Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna go back here. Sorry. Okay, yeah, this might be better if it's okay, just because I can keep the color scheme. Are we still good?
Yes, we are. Absolutely. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yes, no problem. Thank you again so much, everyone. So basically, I'm going to talk about the United States education system. Thank you, Brains and Butter. Thank you to my a very good friend, Joseph, too, for helping me with some of the graphics here. I am also a math and science curriculum writer, and I am now based in Texas. I did some of my PhD work in North Dakota, but we have moved now to Texas, and that's where I do teach mathematics at LeTourneau University. I'll be teaching intermediate algebra. This is my family. My wife is from the United States, and so she also has a lot of insight that she can add to the discussion, but she's not on the call now. It's actually 5:39 a.m. in America, so they're still resting. But this is my family with 7 children we've been blessed with. And so this is the organization that we have in the Texas called the Learning Institute for Excellence, which helps with tutoring, academic support, career prep, and so on. But we also are looking for more collaboration opportunities in Nigeria to get people to come to America. So Brains and Butter is really, the timing of our meeting is just unbelievable. I'll be at Cambridge in August, God willing, and I really hope to keep those visits to England regular. Okay, so the US education system is like chess, right? It's like a chess game, we call it. And here's what's interesting about it. There are many ways to actually expedite your studies in America, and I'll talk briefly about that. Let's talk briefly about the undergraduate and graduate. So I'm not going to go into detail into the secondary school, but the K-12 system in America is very similar to primary 1 to SS3 in Nigeria. Believe it or not, it's the same number, the same system in terms of primary 1 is the same as first grade. Primary 2 is second grade. Primary 3 is third grade. So we do the same thing. Then we say JSS1 in Nigeria. We call it 7th grade here. And basically 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 matches to JSS1 to SS3. So the point there is for the K-12 or primary and secondary, we are actually similar in terms of the number of years. So we graduate secondary school at the same time in general as people in Nigeria graduate from SS3. So very similar in that sense. The college majors, this is one major difference between the American and Nigerian system, and I'll come back to this later. It's different, and I actually don't support the American model of this. And this is what I mean. In America, in Nigeria, when you go into SS1, you have to choose whether you're going into science class or arts class or commercial class or social science. In America, you actually don't have to choose a path until you get to university, not only until you get to university, but until your 3rd year in university. So people can literally go to university without knowing what they want to study in America until the third year. However, that's one of the things by God's grace that we hope to solve in America. That model doesn't work. And here's what I mean. In America, you might have heard about the student loan crisis problem going on. And part of what's going on is we have a lot of people who go to university and then they jump around different departments. And then some of them never graduate. Some of them graduate and then they regret the degree they got, and so on and so forth. So what I'm actually encouraging families to do is, because children are created, they're created for a purpose. They have a purpose. They have talents and abilities. Those things begin to show when that child is still 10 years old, 8 years old, 12 years old. And we shouldn't undermine those tendencies that children have. Why is this important? Because as soon as you know what you want to do with your life, it helps to then make a path. That's why I strongly encourage people to take career tests regularly so that they can figure that out. As a matter of fact, one of the greatest mathematicians the world has ever seen was only 10 years old. He's from Cambridge in the United Kingdom. He was only 10 years old, but he knew about a math problem that had not been solved, and he made it a goal in life to solve that problem. And he did. He's now a professor at Oxford University. His name is Sir Andrew Wiles. He's been knighted now, by the way. So notice that he knew what he wanted to do at a young age. He applied himself to it. He came to America, went to Princeton University. Notice again, when you know what you want to do, it affects what university you go to. Princeton University is the same university Albert Einstein was teaching before he died, right? And so when you know you want to study math or physics, you should be thinking about Princeton and MIT. If you want to study law, you should be thinking about Harvard and Yale. These are the important questions. And so I actually dedicate a lot of my time. I've put together some materials for career preparation for families, because I believe that we need to deal with the question of vision, right? Or hopefully by the age of 12, 13. So Nigeria actually has an advantage by giving people that science class direction. When Nigerians come to America and they're science students, I can tell you one thing: they will be one of the best in their science classes in America. And that's just, again, from personal experience. I thank God for the background I had, but I've seen it over and over and over again. So we are doing something right in Nigeria. Now, some parents might say, am I not limiting the opportunities for my child? Well, that leads me to the STEM versus non-STEM. If you are looking for scholarships, if you're looking for opportunities where you don't have to pay as much, then STEM is really where things are at in America today. And that would lead me to the graduate school discussion briefly. So for undergraduate, you basically graduate SS3 and you make sure that you take the SAT exam. And I'll give you the list on the next set of slides. You take the SAT exam and you apply to a university, tell them what you're interested in. I would highly encourage people in SS1 to start applying to the United States for their undergrad. So when they're in SS1 is when they should actually be studying for the SAT, because by the time they're in SS2 is when some of those deadlines will come, so that when they're in SS3, they should actually have their admissions already. So SS1 is a good time to start. Can you start later on? Yes. However, you probably will miss out on MIT and Harvard, especially if you start in SS3. Except if you take a gap year. But we'll come back to this. I promise I'll make more videos on any questions if I don't get to all your questions. But so undergraduate education, you finish SS3, you come here, you do 4 years. That's the typical time. I did it in 3.5 years with a major and minor, and I thank God for just knowing some of these strategies while I was in the system. So I graduated in less time with more degrees than is typical. But you can even do better. I can help families graduate in 3 years, and especially those who want to go into a graduate school. So let's talk about that. Under a graduate school, for those who want to study in the STEM fields, and I'm not joking, this is my experience too. For my PhD in chemistry, I had to pay nothing. They actually paid me to do some of the work in my PhD in chemistry. So when you want to do a STEM degree in chemistry or physics or math or certain branches of engineering, you are pretty much guaranteed a full ride. That's just the way it is here. So you don't have to pay anything, and sometimes they pay you anywhere from 25, 30,000. Now, for some people, that's gonna be okay, but that generally, I'm just saying, like, for me, it wasn't my main sort of income. It was just one opportunity to get paid. So anyways, that's the graduate school. STEM people get a lot of funding. The non-STEM people can get some funding, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's not as available from what I've seen. So for graduate school, let's just talk about that briefly. When you get your bachelor's degree in the United States, you can actually skip your master's and go straight to your PhD, especially if you're in the STEM field. So like I got my master's in medical physics, medical health physics. My bachelor's was in chemistry. So when I was going to PhD, my PhD route, I actually just went right into a PhD in chemistry, and it didn't matter that I had a master's in medical physics. So you can go from your bachelor's in math to a PhD in math. You can go from your bachelor's in electrical engineering to a PhD in electrical engineering. Now, within that PhD, you finish all the master's coursework and then jump into more research. Notice I say it takes 2 to 10 years, depending on your field of study, to finish your master's/PhD. For the PhD, for mathematics, for example, that could take up to 7 to 10 years. It depends on how your research goes. That's probably the worst case scenario. After 10 years, at that point, you have to wrap up. But I would say that in general, about 5 years would be what you need after your 4-year degree to get a PhD. So for example, you get a 4-year degree in chemistry, and then you study and get a PhD in 5 years. So that would be your total timeline. We're not going to talk about postdocs, but that's a different thing. Again, I can go into medicine, engineering, whatever field you need me to go into. But that's the general overview of undergraduate versus graduate. Okay, so the GRE and GMAT are the exams for graduate school entry. Those who want to study business will be looking at the GMAT. If you want to go to the MBA at Harvard, Stanford, and so on. If you want to go for chemistry or physics, you take the GRE. The admissions process is similar for public and private universities. Let me just say this. The universities in America, for the most part, every university has facilities and resources. They're doing pretty good. Really, it comes down to cost. That's what it comes down to. So I want to re-emphasize again, vision matters. What is the goal for the child? And then based on the goal, look at schools. If you want to study computer science, MIT, Caltech, and that's if you want to go to the best of the best schools. Now, again, you can do your undergraduate at a state university, like let's say University of Texas at Dallas, or let's say North Dakota State University. You could do your undergraduate there and be just fine. And then when you want to do your master's or PhD, you can go for the competitive schools. That's completely okay. There's the question of, do you want to be a big fish? Do you want to be a small fish in a big pond, or big fish in a small pond? That's something, again, I can coach families on based on that child's passion, talents, and so on. So what do you need for a strong application? You need to start applying early if you want to go to MIT, Harvard, or Stanford. If you don't want to go to those types of schools, it's okay to start in SS2. It's okay to start in SS3. You can apply, let's say in January of your SS3, and still get into some schools and come in August. That's fine. But those will not be at Harvard and MIT, because some of those schools, their deadline is November of your SS3, meaning that you should have taken all your exams in SS2. So that's why I tell families, and I'll tell families right now, I'll be honest with you, if somebody wants to go to MIT, Harvard, or Stanford, I need to know by primary 5. That's when I need to start planning that out, because these schools are so competitive that there's certain things, and I have a checklist I can share with you guys. There's a checklist that you have to, like community service, foreign language mastery, advanced mathematics, advanced science, advanced history, like all these things we have to map out for their secondary school years. And that's where we can talk more. And please know that the courses that are offered through some of the universities here, your students can actually start tapping into them while they're still in Nigerian schools. The university that I'm teaching for in Texas, they actually have resources for JSS3 and SS1 and SS2 students. So you can be taking my math class while you're still in your school. You could just do it for fun. So that when you apply, you actually tell them, here's the math class I took from that university. That strengthens your application when you show that you're doing college courses while you're still in secondary school. So you need to take the SAT or the ACT if you want to be competitive. The TOEFL exam for those in the UK, you don't have to worry because you speak English. So for the most part, you speak better English, honestly. That's something you will notice. The British speak better English than Americans in some fashion. So anyways, that's the TOEFL. The TOEFL is the exam for English. Then you need to have an application form filled out, and the application fee is about $75. Our company can help with some of these pieces of the puzzle if there's ever a challenge for how to take care of these things. Admissions essay, especially for top schools, recommendation letters from a counselor as well as teachers from your school. Transcripts matter. But I would say the SAT, again, is going to be the big thing. You want to make sure you get a close to a perfect score. Again, I know Nigerians, like when I was going to come to America, I wanted to look at the top schools. And I know Nigerians like to look at the top schools, right? So that's why I'm saying try and get as close to a perfect score as you can. I teach the ACT, SAT, and all that. And so I'm just saying as a side note. And one thing I know is that you can start studying for that as early as JSS 2, JSS 3. So when children have time, let them not just be playing video games all the time. They should literally be studying their SATs for 45 minutes, an hour a day. That's how they get ahead of the game. College courses, take college courses like college chemistry and calculus and physics. We have courses that literally take you from the beginning to the end of the course. So students can play with those kinds of courses and just begin to get some credits, because you need 120 credits to graduate from a university in America for your undergrad. We can help families get 60 of those credits. And what that means is that when you come to America, you literally only have 2 years left of your undergraduate degree. So we help students cut their college education down to 2 years so that they can then go on for their master's or PhD, right? In some fields, a bachelor's has become sort of a very low bar. So you have to go up to a master's or PhD, which is different from 40 years ago. That's why we help people get the bachelor's completed quite efficiently. So scholarships and financial aid abound. There's a lot of opportunities in America. Again, if you start applying early, financial statement document will be important if you're applying for some of the financial aid. But if you get a perfect score on the SAT, for example, you have a good transcript, you have good application essay and so on, you literally can get full rides. I had a friend who came around the same time as me. He actually got a full ride to his university and they paid for his plane ticket. So he never had to pay for any education while he was in America. All he had to do was get on a plane. That was it. And we have many stories like that. If you get into schools like MIT, Harvard, Caltech, you literally have opportunities for full ride. So I can guide families through that. Again, it's going to be an investment, but at the end of the day, your child ends up coming, they don't have to pay as much. I'll show you a chart here in a second. This is the SAT, ACT dates for this coming school year. And so I put it together for families to just see the next exam for the SAT is August 24th. Students can just take it to get a feel for where they're at. And then the next ACT is September 14th. It doesn't matter which one you take. So it's okay to try both and see which one you perform better on. In the past, I know many people are familiar with the SAT and they think that it's the only way, but you can do the ACT as well. I have a course on that. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but the SAT only has 2 sections, English and math. The ACT has English, math, reading, and science. Just something to keep in mind. Cost of college. So if you want to go to MIT and pay out of pocket, it's about $80,000 a year. And there are people who do that, who go to MIT, Stanford, or Harvard. Some people take out student loans. American students do that. But again, if you have the right skill set, you can cut that down significantly, all the way down to 100% off. There's another categories of school called like schools like Rice University, University of Texas at Austin, as well as University of Wisconsin. These are very good schools, but the tuition is about $60,000 out of pocket. If you want to go to a university like where I did my undergraduate degree, the cost would be about $30,000 a year. This is without any scholarships. But with scholarships, you can bring some of these numbers down. One of the universities that I do work for would be somewhere closer to $34,000 a year. However, they have these discounts where you can be at $17,000. They give you 50% off if you pass some of their college courses while you're still in high school. I can provide more information on that later. Now, the last one there that says $5,000 per year, remember I mentioned that you can get half of your college education paid for or like taken care of before you come. That's part of what my business, the Learning Institute for Excellence, does, is that we actually help you pay $5,000 a year to get up to 30 college credits. So therefore, you basically you're getting a very cheap way of getting your calculus and basic courses covered, and you get the same material covered that you would get at Harvard and MIT. The difference is that it's mostly online and you can save a lot of costs. So that's what this graph is showing. You can actually save the first 2 years and not pay these big sums. Now, for your 3rd and 4th year, let's say you went to MIT, and notice that you would only have 2 years to deal with. And that's what we want to do. We want to reduce the amount of time that people have. That's why I said American education is like a chess game. And I've been able to learn and study it for 17 years, and I can give you strategies. This is showing you the traditional high school or homeschool experience. I called it in orange. That's just showing people going 8th grade, 9th grade. And then on the right side, notice where it's saying 14 credits, 13 credits, 12 credits, 12 credits. Those are the credits that I'm able to help students navigate. And that's done through LeTourneau University in Longview, Texas. It's a very good school for mechanical engineering. I would highly recommend it for a starting point, especially, let me just say this for gap year, for people who have concerns about gap year. If your child is 16 years old, if your child is very young and you're concerned about the gap, oh, my child is young, do I want them to jump into university in America? LeTourneau University is one of the best places to have a beginning, sort of get used to the system. And I tell families, and I really mean it, that if your child comes to Texas, they have a resource. They can reach out to me anytime. And so this is one school that I actually visit multiple times every week. And my goal is to build a Nigerian community there, or just kind of keep helping students who are coming, students from all over the world, not just Nigeria, but just to help international students settle down. Then from here, if they want to transfer to a different university, no problem. But here's the thing. The undergraduate, again, is when you're younger, it's good to have those, we're talking about spiritual formation or just life skills, and places like LeTourneau can help with that. That's why I bring up LeTourneau. So if you're concerned that your child is too young and you want a place that gives them some sort of guidance still, that's a place I would recommend. Okay, just quickly, and then I'll land the plane. My goal is really to revolutionize STEM education in the AI age. And I do this by learning from the scientific revolution. So I've written a few books. My newest one coming out this year is called STEM Excellence. And you'll be hearing this over and over again. And it's really, I want to raise the next generation of Newtons and Eulers and Maxwells. That's what I want to do. Now, why is this guy important in our discussion? Because he's literally the smartest guy who ever lived. And he didn't have the internet. He went to Cambridge University. His story is quite inspirational. We'll talk about it if there's time later. There's not much here other than saying, again, that the Nigerian system is similar, but Nigerian K-12, primary, secondary, and the UK, I should say this, the UK and the Nigerian primary and secondary is way better than the American system in the K-12 space. America is the worst country in STEM in the industrialized nations in K-12. Like, we're literally like the last. And I know I'm kind of calling out my nation, this nation now, but it's very sad because we have students graduating with very low math scores. The UK has some of the best math students. So in the K-12 space, the CSE and the GCSEs are way more rigorous than what American can offer in the K-12 space. But remember, in Nigeria, when you're running a relay and then you give somebody in the fourth leg and you give the best runner, right? But in the university space, America, we begin to catch up and we get ahead there. That's why we have some of the top universities. And we actually asked a top scientist, why is this the case? And he actually says, America gives you a second chance. That's why our colleges are very good, both public, private, they're very good. However, of course, in Nigeria, it's really sad. Our public universities are struggling. I applied to University of Jos, and it's a long story. But anyways, I know what it's like to go through the Nigerian system. So from UK to US or Nigeria to US, it's a very easy transition, honestly. A-levels makes you a very strong candidate, but you can come without that. I'm just saying it does help a lot, especially if you're going into STEM fields. This presentation can be shared, please, Ms. Mark, with others. I know I've gone quite fast. But from the UK to the US, again, you just reach out. I can guide you through the process. Take the SAT. Let's figure out your vision, and then let's send in the application form. And literally, the A-levels and your coursework is more rigorous. So we love to see people come from the UK. From Nigeria, you take the WAEC, you take the SAT, and you basically, I would encourage both the UK and the Nigerian people, start looking at college credit for US universities before coming so that you get some credit and get an advantage. I'm going to end with just a few slides. And then these slides are just a recap of some of the work I've done. This is the math curriculum work we did, showing all the books that we had to study and that we used to build the curriculum which we built. This is a book that I will provide to families in the UK. That's one of my goals. This will help your students when they come to America, because this explains the American math education system, which is a key part of your application. okay, this is a random fact. 50% of engineering students drop out of college or change majors in America, but that's not the same statistic for Nigerian students because of that SS1 science class. You see what I'm getting at? Nigeria prepares students so well. And by the way, in the top 10 professions of earnings, 8 out of 10 are engineering majors. That says something about engineering specifically. Okay, finally, these are the last two people that are also top mathematicians. I want to encourage you to encourage your children to develop their talents. Tell them stories about people like Newton, stories of people like Gauss, stories of people like James Clerk Maxwell, the greatest mathematical physicist ever, who made it possible for us to be having this conversation by discovering that light was electromagnetic radiation. He's the father of electrical engineering and literally the greatest mathematical physicist. Anyways, someone mentioned mental health. So this is what's going on in America. This topic with these two individuals are some of the leading people. So this is just bonus. It's just Jara for the families. This guy just released a book called The Anxious Generation. There's a lot of that in America. I know it's around the world. COVID didn't help, but I'm saying there's resources that our company actually invests in these discussions because we want to help your child to flourish in all areas. With that said, have a blessed day, and I'll land the plane there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amos. I'm very grateful. Wow, what a time, what a presentation, what an experience. You really have hit several nails on the head. Can I please just ask that the host grant me the right to unlock my video so I can get right into it? Mr. Bemileke, if you're in the chat, would you please be so kind? There we go. Thank you. Wow. Mr. Amos, you did say that your presentation was going to be quite the experience, and I must say that it was. Thank you very much for that walkthrough. We have so many questions already, but before I get started, there's one that's right on top of my mind. Now, when Ms. Bernadette was speaking, she mentioned that the UK is there's something that you said that I think is so important, saying that families need to start to know what the children are interested in, because the US educational system is structured in a way that reflects children's interests and emphasizes them. So you say something like someone that solved a mathematical problem, figured out that he was interested in mathematics as 10 years old. And that is speaking more to, do I want to say interests, right? Ms. Bernadette mentioned that the UK system is set up to encourage extracurriculars as part of the educational process for the child. Is there a reflection of that in the US system as well? Or is it just focused on academic aptitude and figuring that out early to invest in that as time goes on?
So it's actually the opposite. America focuses on the extracurricular to the excess, to the nth degree. And what I mean by that is, you have kids who are in soccer and basketball, and we have so many teams, right? So there's so much, and there's nothing wrong with that. I played tennis while I was in university. I still play tennis and soccer. I get it. But what the problem we have in America is we don't emphasize enough having a path, because we allow you to come to university without a path. Now, one could argue that that has benefits, but the reality is we need more electrical engineers. We need more chemical engineers. That we don't need more people to just study certain fields that nobody needs, So that's why I'm saying, I'm not saying nobody needs it, but I'm saying we don't need them as much right now, right? So some people are graduating in English and they don't have jobs, because we don't need as many English graduates as we need engineering. So I'm also just thinking of practical side of things. I think, yes, if a child loves languages, go for it. But I'm just saying networking matters. So yes, extracurricular matters, especially if you're going to go to MIT or Harvard. You have to also have all those other things. And I have that checklist, Ms. Mark, that I can send to you that shows those different things.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Such a wholesome and well-rounded answer. All right, Dr. A, we're going to go right into your, your presentation. It's very rarely a presentation. It's really just your highlights, your topic highlights, but you have so many things you want to share with us on this topic, because like you said in the beginning, this is something that has come up repeatedly, flagged up for our families and for our parents, and Mr. Amos and Ms. Bernadette have done justice to that. But I absolutely want to hear from you on this. Even though the UK is your niche, you are very well grounded, right, in other educational systems by virtue of research and experience. what is your take on this transition? Especially, I would like you to really touch on what the transition looks like from Nigeria for both the US and the UK, so that the families that are in attendance just have a well-rounded sense of what the requirements for that are.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Miss Mark. First of all, I would like to ask, Bemileke, can you have myself, Mr. Tafa, and Miss Mark spotlighted on the screen? Because essentially 3 of us will be having a conversation here. So the 3 of us, I can just see Mr. Amos. So I think you may need to use the pins. Anyway, so I'll leave you to that. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, I'd like to say that we have parents from all over the country on the call. So we actually had a parent asking, is SS1 the same as year 10 in the UK? So we have non-Nigerian parents. I can also see parents from the United Arab Emirates, from Dubai, and from Saudi Arabia on the call. So we're going global. So it's not just Nigerian parents on the call. So please forgive us if we have emphasized on Nigeria. A lot of us are from Nigeria. However, we are very mindful of an international audience. So if there's any area where you need further clarity, please let us know. We're elevating to a global sort of mindset and narrative in the way we explain ourselves. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. Then secondly, wow, Amos, my goodness, you know, Americans speak so fast. And I was trying to keep up with you. I'm like, oh, what is going on here? I'm writing one and you're dropping another gem. That was brilliant. That was phenomenal. You said so many things that transcend beyond admissions into the US. So many things that everyone on here can learn from. Every parent here can learn from. That was brilliant. And I said to myself, we are charging for the replay of this. If you're not here, if you are here, be very glad that you are here. And please stay on. We're nearly done because we will be charging for this replay. A lot of value was given, a whole lot of value was given. And I saw that one of our parents on the call started following you whilst you were presenting. It showed up, it popped up. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, now my cue is to talk about the transitions from the UK to the US. And there are 5 things I want to really share. And some of them I actually took from your presentation, Mr. Tafa, and I'd like us to have a bit of a banter on this as we sort of tie this all together, particularly as we have some questions. And I would really love us to answer the questions from the parents. So I would go through my bits really fast, answer the questions, and if there's anything I've missed out on, I will revisit them. But I really want to answer the questions. I can see 7 already in the Q&A section. The first thing, and please, I would encourage you to get a pen, get a paper, or write this down on your phone, because whatever you're hearing here today, you need to execute upon. It's not just another webinar that you attend. I know I learned this and then you go away. Life will happen. You might forget this. You know, I'm a believer, and the Bible teaches me, write the vision and make it plain that she may run that reads it. So I want to encourage you to write down some of these things. The first thing is vision. Vision, vision, vision. And Mr. Taufa did a fantastic job on highlighting the importance of vision. And it is underneath the arena of vision that we can talk about career tests being done on a regular basis. There's a question on that, so we can come to that. You know, that's where you look at observation, observing your child very keenly, the pathway that you went through as a parent in discovering your career pathway. You don't have to replicate the same for your child. You are better educated. You are sitting down at this webinar for a reason, to be able to chart a better course of action for your child. So please do not make the mistake of replicating how your parents charted your pathway or how you found your pathway for your child. You know better, so it is important that you do better. I'll leave it there for vision. Number 1 is vision. If you're writing down, please write number 1 down as vision. Now, the second thing is timelines. timelines. Oh my goodness. Again, I sorry, but not sorry to refer to the Bible to teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts to wisdom. The Bible says you need to understand the time frame we're looking at. A lot of you asked questions about at what stage, and those are questions on timelines. When do I start preparing? When is a good time to get in? It's a question of timelines. And the truth is, again, you can chart that out yourself. However, there are advised timelines that you can work with. And if you listened really closely, you would hear that Mr. Talfa said, if you're thinking of your child going to an MIT or a Harvard, if you want your child to go into a really top university for their undergraduate studies, you want to be starting as early as primary 5, which is equivalent to year 5. You're talking that early on the journey to get ready. Now, I know for some parents, you're like, I don't want an academic hothouse for my child, and that's okay. That is okay. It's not for everybody. However, if you are that parent, you have discovered a talent in your child, the earlier you start, the better. It is really important to understand timelines. Everybody's timeline is different depending on where your child is right now. So really, you would need a bit of hand-holding in that regard. And we're actually offering something that literally just dropped on our hearts as we were having this. So for the first 10 families that sign up, you would have coaching from myself and Mr. Talfa in terms of admissions into the US or into the UK, or just to coach your child in everything that we're talking about. So it's going to be on a first come, first served basis. Be sure to click on the link. It's in the comment section. So that would be that on timelines. Now, the next thing is a really, really important one. Cost. Cost. You cannot want to build a house and not count the cost. If you're going on a holiday, you plan for it. The financial realities, the financial demands of education, of quality education, is a reality. It's a reality. And so I like that slide you had, Mr. Talfa, on the cost of college, because it is something that we need to think about. You don't want to bankrupt yourself or lose out on a good quality of life because you're funding your child through education. Would you make some would there be some sacrifice made? Most definitely. You would make a huge sacrifice for your child's education financially. But with really good planning, you can work it out. So the costings need to be factored in. So the third one I have there is cost. Now, the fourth thing is location. There's a program here in the UK called Location, Location, Location. My mom actually loves watching that program. It's for real estate. It's about real estate and houses and, place in the sun, where houses are cheaper and all of that. Location matters. So it's something you really want to think about. Again, Amos, I love that you gave us our flowers here in the UK for how well we do with K-12. And a number of the top mathematicians you talked about went to Cambridge University. So it's really, I'm thankful for your honesty about how fantastic the British educational system is in that K-12 space. And because of the fact that the US, should I say, catches up when it comes to the university stage, or does better than we do here in the UK, that is why we have put this webinar together, because parents are asking questions. If a parent said to me, oh, my cousin finished from a university in the US and came out earning 5 times more than another cousin who studied in the UK, what is going on? What is about the earnings? And I'm like, that's another conversation entirely. So there's that dimension of it. So location matters. Sorry that I digressed here, but you really want to think about where in the US, because yes, your child is studying, but not that your child is studying, your child becomes completely out of reach from you. You want to be able to access your child. Your child needs your support. The parental influence is the most critical variable in the equation of a child's success: the parental intervention, the parental influence, that support, that village, that the child has access to. I mean, one of the books he talked about was mental health. There's a lot going on. It's a different world, right here. So location is important to maintain that sort of cohesiveness and accessibility of parents to child and support systems to the child. Texas, dare I say, is becoming a popular one. A number of our parents, I think, again, it's because they have family members in Texas, right? So Texas is a popular location. Obviously, there are many other locations. Chicago is there, many locations, but we find that Texas seems to be a popular location for this same reason of location. So if you're writing down, the first thing I said was vision. The second one was timelines. The third one was cost. The fourth one I've just rounded up on now is location. The final one, the fifth one, is the transitions. And that is very closely linked to the second one on timelines. But here I really want to bring in an answer to this question on how does my child move from the UK to the US? Okay, please listen very closely. The main thing that a child needs to do or to sit to be able to go to university in the US is the SAT, right? Is the SAT exam. At what stage the child sits down for that is down to how well you can prepare your child. Post GCSEs, some children can actually sit for it pre-GCSEs, but GCSE is already quite time consuming for children and for families. So in the UK, not many families do that before GCSEs, but it is not impossible. You can actually have your child sit the SAT exam pre their GCSE exams. Now, post GCSE, you have 2 years in the United Kingdom of what we call your sixth form studies. It is often the case that families whose children are considering going to the US for university will sit for their SATs during their sixth form years because they have a narrower sort of selection of subjects to deal with, but not all the time, because if you're doing the international baccalaureate program, you already have 6 subjects you're preparing for. And the IB route is another route families can go through to go to universities in the US. So many families will have their children sit for their SATs in those 2 years of sixth form. Remember, I said earlier that when a child is studying for sixth form, there are different pathways. Before you start year 12, you already know which pathway, or at least should know which pathway you want your child to go. Do you want your child to do A-levels? Do you want your child to do B.Tech? Some people even do foundation programs, but that's if you've done year 12 somewhere else. You have the IB program that I've talked about as well. And you have many other qualifications. In fact, we have medical students who are also writing exams within those 2 years. So whatever pathway you choose, which is more of a UK style route and pathway, if you want to bring in the US dimension, then your child can sit for their SAT exams in those 2 years. However, it's one thing to sit for the exam at a particular point in time. It's another thing to start the preparation early. And that's where I would like to close out on this issue of transition. It's all about how early do you start preparing your child. That is the key. That is the bane of all of this, because the better prepared a child is, the better they perform, right? The easier the transition, the less overwhelming it becomes. I've said it many times and I will say it again, and I can see that things are changing. For some reason, some of our parents leave things a bit to the last minute. And I have parents who would come to me and they're like, if I had a parent call me 2 days ago at past 9 p.m., thinking of a September start. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how late can this be? However, we will do what we need to do to make this happen. But can we please not leave things to the last minute? Can we please give time to do its thing? Please, it is so important. Now, I like this saying that says, after all is said and done, what is said and what is done? What are the preparations you are going to make on the back of this poll? I strongly recommend you fill the link that we have shared, because each child, each family is different, right? And you really want to have that hand-holding done for you as we coach you through your child's preparation and transition, not just to universities in the US, but for a better career pathway. Now we have questions in the Q&A, 8 questions now. Miss Mark, please take it away with the questions, and myself.
Wow. When you said take notes, my notes are full, because as always, you have gone straight to the point and shared so much knowledge. Thank you very much for that overview, Dr. A. Very, very impactful. Just a recap, if you were listening, 5 key things you need to look out for a transition. You need to have a vision. You need to have your timelines. You need to keep a cost in mind. You need to keep location in mind, and you need to know what is required for that transition. Thank you very much for those very, very valuable tips. All right, we're going to be rounding off now, but absolutely not without taking your questions. Thank you for your questions. Please keep them coming. We'll go right into it. Mr. Amos, this one is for you. Thank you for this enriching experience. Can you talk about getting full scholarships in US Ivy League universities, please?
So let me quickly say this, because I know I didn't get time to cover everything, but here's the thing about America. I had a friend from Singapore visit, and he's talking about Ivy League schools and so on. So he visited, and I've been studying Singapore's math curriculum. They're #1 in the world. So I bought the books and all that. And one thing he said to me that is going to be important for parents to hear is, he said to me, Amos, it seems like in America, you have so much land and space, so you guys don't have to be as competitive as we do in Singapore. And I think the same could be said of the UK. Why am I saying this? Texas has 29 million people. We have land and space. We thank God, right? There's some states in America that are pretty much like empty. Why am I saying this? There is a university for everybody. Like, there is room. Do you see what I'm saying? In America, there's room. And if you're willing to go to a cold climate, you can get a cheaper school, right? There's some of the states that are in the cold zone. I went to the cold zone, not knowing how cold it would be, but I survived, and you'll be okay. Now, how do you get full scholarships? Take the SAT and get a perfect score. That's #1. There's a book called, there's all these publishers, one called the Digital SAT. I just have a standard textbook here. But how do you get a perfect score? I think Dr. Alo and Brains and Butter, if you don't mind, I think we need to make a module called How to Get a Perfect Score, and we'll record it somewhere and put it, because there are actually ways to get a perfect score without sweating. And part of it comes down to use multiple textbooks. So use Barron's, Princeton Review, like use multiple publishers. And here's a crazy fact. Use the Cambridge IGCSE math book for fun. Use that, because that will actually make your SAT better. Because again, I really mean what I'm saying. The UK and Singapore and schools that use the IGCSE in the K-12, like, I buy Cambridge books. That's part of my goal coming to Cambridge. I'm going to buy some books, because your books are quite rigorous and can help a lot of students. So get a perfect score, get a good recommendation letter, start networking now. Like, if you want to go to these schools and you connect with Brains and Butter and I will begin the process. Let's find what department we need to talk to so that I can begin to get you ready. And I actually will reach out to the professors that fit the vision of the child, if that makes sense. If that child wants to be a computer scientist or chemist, I have a professor at Rice that we can start talking to discuss those things. So please, early preparation matters, SAT matters, college credits early, and I can help you with all of that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Concise, straightforward. I absolutely love it. All right, I'm going to be combining a couple of questions together because they're along the same path, and they're along the path of the career test. So you mentioned taking career tests often just to get a sense of what the aptitude is, because one of the things that you have highlighted is to be able to know what university the child's going to go to, because that's the way the US works. They have to know what their natural aptitudes are. And one of the ways to kind of discover that are to do periodic career tests. So we have questions on how soon can we start to do the career test for children, at what age, some tests that you can recommend, Yeah, I think that's it. So, and where you can take the test. So where can we take the test? At what age can the children start to take the test? And are there tests that you can recommend, or, you know, what's your take on that? Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yes, there are tests. There's a lot of them. And the school I started, so I started a hybrid school in Minnesota, and we made all our primary 6 students and above to take it. Everybody in the school took the test. And a lot of people were able to find their different, like, it confirmed things they knew. So number one is there are many tests. Just looking up online, that's fine. But here's the thing. If your child is good at math, I really want to beg you, please encourage them not to give up that gift, because the world needs more people that are very good at math. So if they're good at math and art, for example, tell them to be a mathematician who's also an artist. Does that make sense? Don't give up on the math. Math is key, because with AI, for example, everything runs on math. So we literally need more math people on all hands on deck. Plus, there's more scholarships for them. That's the other thing. If you're going into a STEM field, the reason why some of those are fully funded is because you can have a company that gives money to a university that says, we want more people to study electrical engineering, which is why that student ends up not paying. So that's why it's important that we encourage that. Now, I know that people might say, isn't 10 years old too young? But based on what I've seen through the years, I've worked with hundreds of students. It seems to me that primary 4, primary 5, primary 6, somewhere in that window, children go back. Like, I was writing math when I was in primary 3. I was writing math problems. And I didn't study mathematics for my undergraduate, but I've always loved math as a hobby. Like, on a Friday night, I was listening to partial differential equations. I was listening to a discussion about that. And so I'm weird, and I know that, but every child, right? But that was from primary 3, right? And I was the best in common entrance. I was the president of Jets Club. Do you see a trend? I'm doing the thing that I was doing in primary 4, primary 5. So I really want to encourage you, make sure your child grows in their math skills. Oh, by the way, quick, I know our time might be shorter, but Isaac Newton was actually born premature. He wasn't a prodigy. He was born premature, had a hard life. But hard work and the understanding of mathematical principles opens doors for anybody. So for every parent on the call, please don't buy into the idea that there's a math brain. That's actually very rare. It's very rare to see people that actually have a math brain. Most people get the desire to love and do it, and that's how they become good. So anyways, career tests, there's a lot of them. Strength Finders is a good one. If you email amosthemathguy@gmail.com, I can send you the ones that we did. Brains and Butter, I really hope we can create a career module for families, because this is so important. And I think by primary 6 or JSS 1, let's get that out of the way so we can begin to guide the child.
Wow, brilliant as always. Thank you so much. One more question, and this one just popped in. How would you advise on the path or possibility of to a top US college and scholarship opportunities for a UK-based child who attends a private school that uses the ACE curriculum? I'll read that again because it was quite a mouthful. How would you advise on the path or possibility of to a top US college and scholarship opportunities for a UK-based child who attends a private school that uses the ACE curriculum?
Thank you for that question. Before I answer it, I wanted to say Mrs. Bendett. How do you say the name? Mrs. Bendett? Bernadette, yes. I'm hoping that she can give me her slides at some point, because I want to understand the UK system better, and we need to make a video on the module too. Anyways, I was thinking of that. I don't want to forget. But if you're doing the ACE curriculum, you should probably do the dual enrollment option before coming to America. The dual enrollment option is what I described when I showed you those graphs and I showed you the $5,000 a year. Now, you don't have to only pay, like we do it, but other people do it. It's not only about me, but I think our program is pretty good. But I think you should do the dual enrollment. Here's why I say that. Because the ACE, if you want to go into a top university in the US, unfortunately, I actually taught students that use the ACE, and some of them did not have a grasp on some of the concepts. Again, I'm just speaking in general. Maybe your child would have the grasp, but I feel like the rigor might not be fully there. And here's what I mean. Like, parents, I'm going to tell you a nugget here from the inside scoop of the science community. We need everyone before they come to university to do the following. Number one, we need them to take calculus. We need them to take at least calculus 1, but preferably, and this is what I help people with. I help people with calculus 1, calculus 2, statistics, and discrete math. So basically, before you even start university in America, I can help you get a math minor before you ever come to America, which means that you literally already have a credential, essentially, of a sort, before you ever show up. Then when you apply and you say, I have a math minor, you're different. You're very rare, and I can help you with that. And now, why do I say this? Because some curriculums allow you to graduate without a calculus 1 class. That's not a good thing. You should at least have calculus 1 if you want to go to MIT. I looked at the average score for MIT on the other day, and honestly, they had perfect score for ACT. That was their average. I'm just like 35 to 36. That was crazy. I mean, the fact that the average score is literally everybody's getting a perfect score. So if you're going to go there, probably take calculus. Why is this important? Well, there's actually a little bit of science. There's something called neuroplasticity. It's this idea that your brain is not fixed and you can grow it by learning difficult things. Why do you think that they look for physicists whenever there's some sort of difficult war or difficult task? Because the physicists have suffered through a lot of difficult math, so they know that if you suffered that math, you can help us figure some stuff out, right? So there's something about learning calculus that stretches your mind. And who came up with this calculus? Isaac Newton, Cambridge University. So anyways, it's important that students learn calculus, chemistry, and physics, as well as computer science and coding. Please, I beg everybody, let's get those 4 things down, and you'll be able to get into a top university.
Thank you so much. The questions are just pouring in, Mr. Amos. We're going to have you back on another webinar. I definitely see that happening. Another question, does having AP help a student in getting scholarships?
AP, yes. If you have an AP stands for Advanced Placement. The dual enrollment I told you about, the alternative is AP. So instead of taking a dual enrollment physics class, you can take an AP physics class. And by the way, let me say this to Nigerian parents or parents from all over the world. There are opportunities. It is unbelievable what your child can gain if they have a vision and a drive to accomplish stuff. America will reward them greatly. And if you don't mind, I'll just tell you this in 30 seconds. A quick story about this. The guy from Singapore, again, they've been #1 in math for 15 years in a row. I write math curriculum, and I bought their curriculum because I want to see why they're better. And now we're going to train Nigerians to do better than them. But here's what I want to do with this. We met with a professor at Rice University, and we asked him, he's a top chemist in the world. We said, why is it that Singapore has top K-12 students, but they don't have Nobel laureate prize, like Nobel Prize winners? Why does America have the highest number of Nobel Prize winners? And this scientist was invited to Singapore to give a lecture on this very topic. And here was his answer. He said, because in Singapore and Nigeria and India, we weed out students who are creative because we say they're not good at maths or whatever. We weed them out earlier on in the process. So when they get to their SS3, they're no longer given those opportunities that in America they would have. In America, you could be the worst in math and still get into a university. But once you get into the university, not the top university, but just a university, but once you get into a university, America has so much opportunity to help you then blast off. And he said that the creative people, they blossom later in life. Unfortunately, countries that weed people out are weeding out those people that perform, that do well later in life. So that's why we have so many Nobel Prize winners, because to be a Nobel Prize winner, you have to be creative. But in Singapore, you've already weeded out all the creative people for the most part. So you only have the analytical, objective people. So I say that to say AP exams matter, dual enrollment, all of that matters. But please, families, America has opportunities. Start taking them before you even come. And that's what I would say with that.
Thank you very much, sir. And our final question to wrap out today. This question is from Olisa Agbu. If I have a degree in the UK, undergraduate or postgraduate, how do I make the transition to an American university?
So you would take the GRE, the big thing about going into postgraduate school here is you have to have an advisor first. So that's where it goes back to vision for everybody, it seems. But let's say, for example, when I wanted to study chemistry at that university, University of North Dakota, North Dakota State University, I had to look at all the people in the chemistry department and find somebody that my vision and what they do matched. Because in America, once you get to the PhD, you subspecialize, right? So not only are you going to get a PhD in chemistry, but now you're going to get a PhD in computational chemistry of organic compounds. Do you see what I mean? It's like very specialized. So when you email your professor that you're interested in talking to, you say, I have read about your work. I would love to work with you in such and such a field. Do you have opportunities? If you get accepted into almost any of those, chemistry, physics, or engineering, you are guaranteed pretty much a full ride if you get accepted. So basically, by getting accepted, you also get a full ride, but you have to teach a lab or do some research for the professor. That's how you're able to get the free college. And so I would say the GRE is important, and then emailing the professor. But please, if you want any more specifics, let me know. It would be helpful to know what degree specifically you're thinking of studying.
Wow, rich, informative, and a truly brilliant experience. Thank you very much, Mr. Amos, for that very detailed presentation and very detailed answers to our questions. I'm just going to let Dr. Alo give her closing remarks, and then we wrap out. We know that we're far beyond time, but we're very grateful to you for staying. Wow, our families joined on early and stayed all the way. Thank you so much for your rapt attention. Yeah. Thank you so much for all your questions. We're so excited to take the next steps with you. Some links have been shared already. We would like to hear your feedback so that we know how we serve you off of the back of this call. We have also offered discounted consultations with Mr. Amos and Dr. Alo on U.S. admissions. That's only available for the first 10 families that sign up. So please sign up now with the link that's already in the chat room. If you would like access to the replays of this session, they will be available for purchase and they will be shared soon. Thank you very much for your rapt attention again. Yes, we do support with PhD admissions. I just wanted to quickly answer that so that we can wrap up. Please click the links that have been shared and we're going to assist with that. All right. Thank you very much again, Dr. Alo, your closing remarks, and then we wrap up very quickly.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry, Dr. Alo.
Sure, go ahead.
So I didn't talk about medicine, but please know that whether, again, it doesn't matter what you want to study, I can help. But medicine is the one difference, and that's you need to get a 4-year degree first before you go to medical school, and we do help with that as well. So keep that in mind for families. And our doctors earn a lot more than the UK doctors. I'm sorry. That's a different story.
That is true. That is so true. I am so thrilled, so excited about this webinar that we have just held. You know, Ms. Mark was saying our parents have stayed from the beginning to the end. It is so true. We can see the list of parents and we are wowed. We are so wowed. I would say this, even if you are not thinking of sending your child to the US, be sure to take advantage of the offer that we're giving. Like, fill that form. Even if you're the 11th person or you're the 20th person, just fill that form. You cannot leave this webinar without filling that form. What we have done today is we have opened a minefield, literally, of a pathway of success for our children. And we need to leverage on this. There's so much to unpack. One of our parents put on the Q&A, what if I want to listen again? Fantastic question, because everyone, myself included, we need to listen to this again. What we're going to do. So the replay link is going to be a paid link, like that's on period, that is done. However, my team and I are going to take screenshots of those who are currently on this call, and we will definitely sort something out for you. There will still be a charge. However, it will be substantially less because you are on this call than those who are going to have to watch it later, because everyone got the advert. but not everyone has turned up today. Some of you may even be in a party. I don't know where you are right now, but you made the effort to be here. So we're going to reward that. So I know that my team members are listening and they've done that already, and I'm sure they'll do that again just in case, because we had some people log in and some people fell off. So for those of you on this call, be rest assured we will sort something out for you. Please fill the feedback form, fill the link to get access to coaching and consulting from myself and Amos, because that's when we'll talk about your child. This is a general information session, but enough for you to really start to unpack and work on certain things to chart the course for success for your child. I would wrap up by saying this, and it's something I said earlier. Please do not replicate the pattern of your career pathway to your child. Please do not. Your parents did what they knew best. You found your way somehow. I once heard, much to my discomfort, that Africans are late bloomers. Why should we be late bloomers when we're so intelligent? For us not to be late bloomers, we need this. We need to leverage on the expertise, on the, should I almost say, a critical mass of expertise that myself and Amos bring to the table, and a number of other people that we have access to. Leverage on it, and you will be so glad that you did. I want to say a big, big thank you to everyone who has stayed on the call. Some of you have sent me messages already. Please bear with me. I haven't even gotten over my 40th birthday messages. Thank you for that. And now we've had this webinar. It's Founders Month. So many messages. Please bear with me. I will get to them when I can. But please make sure you fill the links, because my team members are phenomenal. They will be attentive and ready to answer any questions that you have. It has been an amazing, amazing Kairos Saturday morning, very well spent. Tafa, Mr. Amos Tafa, thank you so much. Miss Mark, you are the real deal. And to everyone that has worked behind the scenes, supporting you to put this together, very well done. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Dr. Alo. What a time we have had right here at the Charting the Course Navigating Admissions webinar. A very, very big thank you to everybody that stayed with us, all of our amazing parents. We are so privileged to be able to have conversations with you like this, and we are very grateful for the opportunity to take them to the next step. A very big thank you to our associate consultant, Mrs. Bernadette, who has been a brilliant, brilliant speaker on the UK educational system. We are grateful for your time and your expertise. You are family to us here at Brains and Butter. And of course, to Mr. Amos, wow, an absolute prodigy you are. Thank you for your brilliance. Thank you for your input. We are so excited to be going on to the next steps. Of course, a reminder for our parents, our next steps are available. We would love that you fill the feedback form that's already been shared in the chat. We would love to hear back from you on your experience. We are also offering discounted consultancies, like Dr. Alo has said, to reward you for your time and your patience on this call. So please fill that link as well. If you have any other inquiries or any other questions at all, the Brains and Butter team is here on this call and is itchy to get you started as quickly as possible. All right, my name is Miss Mark, and it has been my absolute privilege to serve as your moderator today. We look forward to connecting with you via our social media platform, Brains and Butter, everywhere social media exists, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a truly beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Mark. Thank you, Mrs. Fakisi. Thank you, Bernadette. Amazing. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.